Mermaids and Mermen, Allure or Deathtrap, Origin of the Myths. The origin of the myths of mermaids and mermen is a fascinating subject that dates back to ancient times, permeating many cultures around the world. From ancient Greece, where mermaids were seen as creatures that seduced sailors with their hypnotic songs, to the Norse legends that spoke of aquatic beings that inhabited rivers and seas, the image of these creatures has evolved over the centuries. For me, it is intriguing to think about how these myths reflect both the beauty and the dangers of the natural world. When we talk about mermaids, we often think of their representation as enchanting women with fishtails, symbolizing seduction and attraction. However, it is essential to remember that in many cultures, these creatures were also associated with death and misfortune. Mermaids were not only beautiful, they were dangerous, capable of leading men to a tragic fate. This dual aspect is one of the points that fascinates me the most when exploring these legends, as it teaches us about the complexity of human nature. Mermaids, in turn, are often seen as the guardians of the sea. In various traditions, they are described as beings that possess both the strength of nature and the wisdom to know the secrets of the ocean. This duality, between beauty and wisdom, strength and fragility, leads us to reflect on how these myths can be a representation of our own lives. Just as mermaids and mermen have their place in stories, we also have our own narratives that try to explain who we are and what we seek. Attraction and danger. When we talk about mermaids and mermen, it is impossible to ignore the duality that these beings represent. On the one hand, they are fascinating and seductive, and on the other, they carry a mortal danger that can be devastating. This duality is what makes these creatures so intriguing in our culture. Since ancient times, mermaids have been portrayed as enchanting beauties with voices that could hypnotize anyone who heard them. Often, in tales and legends, they lured sailors to their fateful doom, causing them to be shipwrecked on sharp rocks or drown in the depths of the ocean. I wonder how this image of seductive and treacherous beauty resonates in our own lives. How often do we let ourselves be carried away by something that seems irresistible, but which, deep down, can bring us disastrous consequences? The story of the mermaids is a powerful reminder that attraction can come with risks. The melodic voices that echo in the songs are a symbol of how pleasure can turn into pain. This representation teaches us that not all that glitters is gold. We may be attracted to something that seems perfect, but we need to be vigilant and aware of the dangers that can lurk just around the corner. Furthermore, the image of the merman, with its half-human, half-fish body, also carries a deep symbolism. It represents the struggle between the human part, which seeks connection and love, and the animal part, which can be unpredictable and wild. This duality resonates with each of us. How many times have we found ourselves in situations where desire has blinded us to the dangers that surround us? It is an invitation to reflect on our own choices and the way we deal with life's temptations. Symbolism of water. Water is one of the most fascinating and, at the same time, contradictory elements that exist in our world. On the one hand, it is the source of life, an essential element for the survival of all living beings. On the other hand, water can be treacherous and deadly, especially when it is related to mythical beings such as mermaids and mermen. Throughout history, these beings have been used as metaphors to express the complexity of human nature and the dualities of life. When I think of water, I can't help but think of how vital, refreshing, and purifying it is. It's interesting to note that many myths and legends about mermaids and mermen arise precisely from this contrast. These beings are often associated with the beauty of crystal-clear waters, the soft melodies that echo along the shore, and the tranquility that the sea can provide. However, this beauty hides a dark side. Water can become a rough sea, dragging those who get too close to its shores. This duality invites us to reflect on how life is full of nuances and how beauty can be linked to danger. Mermaids, for example, are often portrayed as enchanting creatures with hypnotic voices that lure sailors to the bottom of the sea. This seduction is a symbol of what many of us face in our lives, the attraction to that which is beautiful, but which can lead us down dangerous paths. Over the years, I have learned that it is essential to discern between what is attractive and what is truly beneficial to us. Beauty can be a trap, and wisdom lies in knowing when to let it go, when to be proud and when to back down. Psychology of fascination. The fascination that mermaids and mermen exert over us goes far beyond the simple charm of stories. The psychology behind this interest reveals a lot about our deepest desires and the risks we are willing to take in the pursuit of something that seems irresistible. Over the years, I have come to realize that this fascination can be a mirror of our own emotions and desires. First of all, it is important to understand that the beauty and seduction presented by these creatures are representations of what we often seek in our lives, something that attracts us, that makes us feel alive. Mermaids, with their mesmerizing voices and stunning appearance, symbolize the search for something that seems beyond everyday reach. This resonates with many people, especially as we grow older and face the routine and banality of everyday life. The idea of letting ourselves be carried away by a powerful and magical force is undoubtedly tempting. However, this attraction is not without its risks. Psychology teaches us that we are often drawn to danger. When mermaids lure sailors to their deaths, they remind us that what is attractive can also be deadly. This reflects a part of human nature that is always seeking intense emotions, even when it can lead us to dangerous situations. We often find ourselves in relationships or situations that, although they initially seem promising, turn out to be toxic or harmful. What is seductive can lead us down dark paths, and this duality is a lesson we cannot ignore. Connection with nature. When we talk about mermaids and mermen, we are not just referring to mythical beings that inhabit the waters. These figures represent a deep connection with nature, and especially with the sea. In many cultures, these aquatic creatures are seen as guardians of the oceans, symbolizing both the beauty and fragility of aquatic ecosystems. As we grow older, it is crucial to reflect on the importance of this connection, not only for ourselves, but for future generations. Throughout history, the sea has been a source of inspiration and life, but also of mystery and destruction. Mermaids, with their mesmerizing song, lure sailors, but often lead to their doom. This duality symbolizes our relationship with nature. On the one hand, the sea offers us resources, beauty, and a sense of peace. On the other, it can be unforgiving and remind us of our vulnerability. Personally, when I look at the sea, I feel a mixture of admiration and respect. It is like a mother who welcomes us, but also a force that we cannot control. This relationship is evident in many myths about mermaids and mermen. They are not just creatures that grace our stories. They are representations of the struggle between the beauty and danger that nature presents us. In addition, mermaids and mermen encourage us to reflect on our responsibility to care for the environment. Unfortunately, human actions have had a devastating impact on the oceans. Pollution, overfishing, and climate change are threatening marine life. As we idealize these creatures, we must also remember that they are asking us to protect the world they inhabit. Impact on society. The impact of myths about mermaids and mermen goes far beyond the stories we heard as children or the films we watched. These figures, who combine beauty and danger, shape the way we perceive attractiveness and risk in our lives. Over the centuries, narratives about these aquatic creatures have influenced not only literature and cinema, but also popular culture and even social behavior. First, it is essential to understand that the image of mermaids and mermen is a reflection of our own fears and desires. The seductive beauty of these creatures represents the search for something deeper, something that is often beyond our reach. However, this search can turn into a dangerous path. When I look at this duality, I realize that many of us have been carried away by an enchanting appearance without considering the consequences. This is a lesson that society has learned over time, but which often seems to be repeated. In addition, the way in which society idealizes beauty, often associated with fragility and risk, can be seen in many spheres. For example, in many films and songs, mermaids are presented as figures that lure the protagonists into the abyss. This plot is interesting because it highlights a universal truth. what is beautiful can also be dangerous. By idealizing this idea, we create a pattern that is often reflected in our interpersonal relationships. Beauty, like mermaids, has the power to enchant, but also to divert attention from the dangers that may be present. This is particularly relevant in a world where image is oftentimes more valued than substance. By allowing ourselves to be seduced by this superficial image, we can ignore the warning signs that are all around us. It is an invitation to reflect on how social expectations influence our decisions and the way we relate to others. Reflection on reality. Reflecting on the reality of the myths of mermaids and mermen takes us on a fascinating journey, where fantasy and truth intertwine in unexpected ways. These enchanting beings, which we often see as symbols of beauty and seduction, also carry with them warnings about the dangers of idealization. It is essential that when we come across these narratives, we are able to distinguish between what is enchanting and what can represent a risk. We begin our reflection by considering how stories of mermaids and mermen shape our perceptions. When we were young, many of us heard tales that extolled the beauty of these beings, highlighting their ability to enchant with their melodious voices and graceful bodies. However, these accounts often neglect the dark side, which involves the deadly seduction and tragic fate of sailors who were carried away by this superficial beauty. This leads us to ask, to what extent are we willing to let ourselves be seduced by something that, at first glance, seems wonderful? Ultimately, by delving into the reality behind mermaids and mermen, we are called to cultivate a deeper connection with our own essence and with the world around us. We need to learn to discern between what is truly worthwhile and what can lead us down a path of disillusionment. This is an essential skill in a world that often promotes the superficial over the true. Therefore, I invite you, dear reader, to reflect on your own experiences and the way in which myths influence your life. How can we find a balance between the attraction to the enchanting and the wisdom to recognize the risks it may hide? This is the true journey,